For those who don't know me, I'm Jill Manoff, Glossy's editor-in-chief, and I'm going to be joined today by Julia Hunter, who is the CEO of Jenni Kayne. We'll hear all about Jenni Kayne today. Definitely has leaned into this new moment. In my intro, we'll talk about how other brands have done so as well, what they're doing with their in-house resources to make them work, whether that means, yes, leaning into what's working, leaning out of things that have proven less successful, making the most of their resources. Okay, I'll just jump in. I'm kind of a state of the industry, what we're seeing, and why we brought Julia on to talk about this. So managing debt levels is requiring big changes. In this chart here, it's showing, this was created in March by McKinsey and Company, and it was showing the effect that a 1 month closure, 2 month closure, and 3 month closure will have on retail, and that means closures of the store. And if it goes on for 3 months, they were anticipating that up to 75% of companies, fashion companies, will be dealing with debt. So we're approaching the 3 month mark, which is oh so scary. So this is why big changes are necessary. You can't just sit on your debt and expect to survive. Next, we've got some Glossy research here. So prioritizing tried and true strategies is trending. So brands have been, especially those that have been around for a few years, they know what works. Maybe they've tried some experiential activations. They've launched categories maybe they weren't sure of, maybe they didn't pan out. So they're leaning away from those that have proven less effective, those kind of no-brainer, sure thing channels, whether it's marketing, whether it's product, which again we'll hear from Julia today about leaning into product that is sure to sell. Companies are leaning. So Facebook, Instagram, whoopsie, Facebook and Instagram. Companies are not going away from them. They know that those channels are working to acquire customers, and these more, I guess, top of the funnel awareness plays, they are leaving them at least temporarily. All right. But brands are also leading into current best bets. So maybe they weren't kind of big on e-commerce, yet now is the time to go there. I mean, you have to go there. A lot of times you don't have physical retail of your own, and maybe you don't have wholesale partners. So there's definitely the move to move all resources to e-commerce. That's one example. And that includes shifting in-store staff to online customer service, also shifting that staff to become stylists and to service customers again online. And they're breaking retail leases. So it's just, again, kind of a writing off of physical retail, if only temporarily, putting all your, efforts and energy into the online channel. And last but not least, they're revising forecasts to get back on track. It can't always be this ultra uphill climb. You're clearly not going to have the year that you were planning for. So these charts are focused on luxury brands in particular, but I do think that it applies where you can't just say it's like the coronavirus moment and you expect to get back to where you were before. You're going to see the effects, you're going to see the impact. This has it going, of course, to 2021 and beyond. So brands kind of know, you can kind of gauge based on China, based on where you're seeing pick up in your own sales and how customer behavior is changing. They're picking up on that and they're setting new goals accordingly. Okay, right now I'm going to introduce Julia. She's going to take it away for a little bit. So please welcome Julia Hunter, again, CEO of Jenni Kayne, and she's going to walk you through her slides. Please, you guys, I want to encourage you to enter your questions for Julia as she's speaking into the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and we will get to those. We'll do some Q&A following her presentation. Hi, Julia.
Hi, thanks for having me. Today I was asked by Glossy to talk about how Jenni Kayne has been optimizing our in-house resources during the time of COVID. So I broke this into a 3-step process just because that's the way that I think. I like to have kind of clear direction on how I'm going to plan for anything. So a plan to make a plan, and that's the way that the presentation is structured. So we can jump into the first slide. So really for Jenni Kayne, we had a fog of war period, I guess I would say. So we found out that all of our retail stores were closing. Our business is about pre-COVID, we had 10 retail stores. Well, we had 6 retail stores with 4 set to open this year. One of those opened 3 days before COVID. A couple of them were supposed to open in the next month or two. So we were a heavily retail focused business, but also had a very a successful and growing e-commerce business. And we had just gone through a pretty intense 5-year planning process for the most of Q1. We were working on it, and also Q4 of last year. Where we were really trying to figure out what our strategy was going to be for the next 5 years, and had the strength of our business was really meant to come from all of the channels together. So that's e-commerce, but e-commerce, we were just looking, I mean, for us, it was exciting to double and double and double over the next 5 years. But the retail stores, we would be going from 6 to 40 over the next 5 years. So it's a pretty aggressive retail store rollout plan, and obviously had to pivot that quickly, not only within the current year, but also just trying to think through what to move forward with. So we have this fog of war kind of period right after everything happened with COVID, shut down all of our retail stores. And I think our first priority, which fortunately we had some help just trying to, I've never dealt with a recession or anything like that before as a relatively young CEO. So it was a bit of a shock. But I think the first thing that was obvious to sit down and do was to just look at our downside and try and understand what the rest of the year was going to look like. So step one, I would say, is to strategically manage the short term. This is relatively obvious, but I think for us felt like the most urgent project was just to get aligned with the investors and make sure everybody's expectations were very clear immediately on what the worst case scenario was, so that there wasn't really a risk that we would be kind of chasing our tail, trying to cut more costs down the road, knowing that anything is possible, but we just wanted to be really clear up front about what we expected could happen if we, in the worst case scenario, which is that the retail store stays closed and our e-commerce business didn't perform, which is something we were worried about. So we started with a 1 to 2 year forecast. I really like to look at the financials first. I come from investment banking. I think it's really important to just have have a clear idea of what you think your revenue is going to do, what your market share could be. So for us, this felt actually relatively quickly. It was easy to see that there might be some opportunity for Jenni Kayne because our product assortment and kind of the brand storytelling around helping women live well felt like it would really resonate with people who are stuck at home and people who were looking for ways to feel inspired, even though there's a lot of uncertainty happening. So for us, we kind of saw this as potentially a chance to grab market share if we were smart about it. Gross margin and EBITDA, of course, these things, we started thinking about promos and whether our business does not typically discount, but we knew that it was going to be a competitive environment for promos, and also knew we were going to need to rely on e-commerce more than we planned to keep the company breaking even. And then cash flow, of course. So just forecasting out how long our cash would last us, whether we should apply for the PPP loan, all those different variables. So put together some thoughts there. And then because we decided in that exercise that a real-time dashboard is always helpful. It's good to know where you're going to be checking reports on a daily basis, but we wanted to create a dashboard that would help us track those metrics minute to minute. So rather than waiting for updates once a month, not that we were ever waiting for monthly updates, but being really clear on what was the health of the business in this new environment felt like a really important next step. You'll see as we go through the presentation, but I've included a few examples throughout of the pieces that came together to help us execute this plan. So for us, because e-commerce, as it is for most brands, became really important, we wanted to track more carefully and clearly our online sales and traffic. So that's not something that we usually looked at daily, but we really wanted to see, starting January 1 until today, were people coming to our site and were they converting? Ad spend calculations. So that was understanding our CAC, our cost per impression, what the trends were happening there. And then of course, making sure our inventory and our margin was moving healthfully. We weren't sure if we should cancel inventory. So those all became important metrics for us to be looking at daily. And then third, after we kind of completed the first 2 steps within this short-term planning, we started to think about what are the big opportunities beyond just looking at our financials and numbers. Strategically, where do we see opportunity? Where do we see big risk? That involved looking at channels, which of course, retail is not a great channel right now. E-commerce is. Products and services. So for us, really focusing on things that felt relevant for people while they were at home, walking away from the things that are more wear to work and fashion. We do have some blazers and heels and things in the assortment that we really just took down from the website and decided that that wasn't going to be a focus because we didn't think it would resonate with our customer and thought it would send mixed messages with the overall strategy. Content and storytelling. So that really came down to leveraging the relationships we have with our customers on Instagram. We have a blog called Rip and Tan that actually has a couple million page views a month. And so focused all of that in on things to help people be inspired at home. We didn't talk about things that felt different from what anyone would want to know about right now. So really focused in on how to help women live well at home, whether that's actually with cooking classes, things that don't necessarily help us sell product at all, but are just ways for women to be inspired and feel like they want to come visit us on our channels. And then margin risk, which was a big one exercise for us because we were just trying to understand, being a non-promotional brand, we try to, while our price points are are not inexpensive, they are relatively expensive, but the quality of our product is really high. So we don't run the company at a very high margin. We try to keep it exactly where we want it to be to get demand for our product. So there was some risk to seeing everyone going on promotion and knowing that that was probably only going to get worse. So trying to look at how we were going to manage that. And then for me, I think the biggest thing that you'll see as a thread throughout all of this is to try and collaborate with team members the entire process. So while I did some of this analysis on my own, a lot of it involved having our core team helping figure out where the opportunities were, and really just align on a plan, and then presenting it to the investors of the company. So really just trying to ensure everyone was aligned, and that we knew there was some downside. We could lose much more. This was the first year the company's supposed to be break even, so we were nervous that was not going to happen. Seemed like it probably wouldn't, but I think we found a path back to profitability this year, and just wanted to make sure everyone was aligned on how we do that. So if we go to the next slide, you'll be able to see. This is the dashboard that we put together. It's really simple, but it was just something that we did actually in Google Docs. So we have a lot of different tools, but we like Google Sheets just because everyone can see them accessed easily from Slack. So this was a dashboard that we put together really on day one of COVID to try and track sales and traffic on JenniKayne.com. So the white line is our sales, and then the blue line is traffic. And the two straight lines are basically the trend of those different curves. And this was something that we weren't sure January, February, March if we were going to be able to continue. Of course, usually we see increases throughout the year, and we were expecting that with COVID we would start to see some drop off. So really wanted to carefully manage that. We've maintained this spreadsheet through May, but it's basically something we're looking at every day to make sure that we were okay and that business wasn't dropping. Traffic wasn't declining, and actually, because I think we were micromanaging it so carefully, we were really able to lean into opportunities to ensure that everything kept going up and to the right. May looks even better than April did, so you can see our trend was in a positive direction, but that was because we had a really focused eye on this and leveraged tools like email and, of course, more customer acquisition, lots of things to make sure that we were driving as much traffic and sales to the website as possible. On the next slide, you can see step 2. So after understanding the short term, we spent time digging into kind of the big picture. So I was like, step 2 is really taking a step back. So as I said, we had just created this 5-year plan in Q4 and Q1 of this past last 6 months, and created a roadmap that had us growing to a large retail store fleet. We have very healthy EBITDA margins in our stores, and it made a lot of sense for us to be focusing on expanding them. So that was a one piece. We also had some different categories that we were going into over the next 5 years. But because of COVID, we decided we needed to kind of revisit that entire plan. So anything that we found from step 1, we would incorporate here and try to make sure that we were addressing, specifically related to product, market share, if there were categories we wanted to go after now that made more sense than they did before, or if anything, we were nervous about anything. We would walk away from it. Same with storytelling. So for us, of course, that meant that we were looking at a digital focus. E-commerce is now, I didn't include numbers in the actual slides in the deck, just in terms of actual revenue numbers, but our plan was to go from We did 8 million in 2018, and last year closed at 24 million. So the business is still relatively small, but we tripled last year. And our trend pre-COVID was to get to 60 million this year, which was amazing, and we were really excited about it. But about half of that was going to come from e-commerce. So e-commerce would do about 30 million this year. But because of COVID, we reshifted our plan and decided to get really aggressive with digital, which we'll talk about how we leveraged the team who wasn't necessarily digital facing to become more digital facing. And now we're going to be able to get to at least 40 million. We're hoping to get back to 50, depending on what happens with the retail stores. So we found a path for us to double again this year, which wouldn't have happened if we hadn't really tried to kind of revisit everything that we were planning for the year. So digital focus became super important, more than it already was. The content strategy, as I mentioned, that's all things that we've been kind of working on, but really decided, okay, what is the big picture going to look like after COVID? Nobody knows at all, but we can make some assumptions around there may or may not be a recession or a depression. People are probably going to want to be cozy. They're probably going to want to have nice things around them while they're at home, but they're also not going to be wanting flashy pieces. We'd heard that brands like James Purse really came up during the last recession because it was staples that were nicely made, but nothing too flashy, no labels. And so we really wanted to go after things that we already believed in that our audience liked, but thought would be even more relevant as we go forward into this uncertain time. And then, of course, leaning into our tried and true categories. So for us, our business on March 15th, before COVID, closed all of our retail stores. If that was 100% of our e-commerce assortment, we dropped it down to 25% of our e-commerce of that same assortment the next day to make it more manageable for us to fulfill, and also to really direct our customer towards the product that we thought that they would like. And we're fortunate that those tried and true products actually are, cozy things that people want to wear at home and to have around them, and blankets and pillows and things like that. So for us, focusing on the tried and true has actually, we really focused in our assortment and have been able to deliver strong financial results. So looking for those types of high impact and low effort opportunities, it didn't take a lot of time to figure out what the assortment could look like. Our team spent a couple of days trying to make recommendations on product, content. We just road mapped out, looked at our calendar and pulled up the things that felt relevant. So just kind of moving pieces around to make sure that we were going to stay relevant and not do anything that would feel alienating as much as possible. We were fortunate we don't play in the fashion space really. So it was easier for us to do that than for some, but still took some work to kind of make the puzzle make sense. And then make quick decisions to manage risk, which really means to me, we were really aggressive with talking to landlords, reducing consultants, looking at the retail store teams and trying to prepare for any worst case scenarios. So didn't want to get us in a jam where we were losing too much cash. And so the decisions were actually relatively easy to kind of go out to all the landlords and be very forward in our asks. I didn't want to sit around and wait. And so but the way that we communicated those things is where we spent time. And so really tried to be careful and understanding that the way that you handle these types of situations in tough moments is going to come back on you at the end. So just trying to be really thoughtful about how we communicated them, but not spending a ton of time evaluating the exact moment to do the decision and whether we should wait and see, because I think that was didn't feel like the right move. So basically taking all this together, then built out a 5-year plan for how we were going to accomplish some of these new goals. I think the next slides, if we go on to the next one, you can see some of the big picture pieces for us. So this is us growing from 2018, you can see we did 8 million to 24. This is our new plan where the dark gray is the retail stores. So as you can imagine, a much bigger chunk of this was coming from the light gray retail stores before we changed our plan. But really our goal has been to get to $100 million in revenue over the next 4 years. And so we redrew our roadmap, and we were, as I said, planning to go from 10 to 40 retail stores. So this mix was going to look a lot different but decided that it felt too risky to be aggressive with retail store expansion, even if there's deals and opportunities. We have been seeing that we can make e-commerce work, and if we make it a bigger focus, the big business will grow faster. So that's what we started working towards, and this is our revised plan, where e-commerce is driving 80% of the revenue over the next many years. And we then decided to build a roadmap to make that happen. So this was the top line forecast that we put together. The next slide is a way that we started thinking about product a little bit differently. Our company offers apparel, shoes, and home product, and we do well across those categories, but apparel specifically has been a business driver for us. Sweaters within apparel, which still makes sense today. Shoes, you can see that's our mule style, which is one of our top selling styles, but we have a couple other more casual styles that we really focused on to be drivers for us in COVID. And you can see the increases. These are the penetration. So apparel, biggest category at 56% of our revenue, and home 10%. This is year to date. And the increases over last year. So apparel's up 212% versus last year's, shoes up 138. But we were finally seeing that home, which is the category that our team has felt really passionate about trying to build, is up 257%. So it is the highest increase. It's still the smallest business, but promising to see it having such high comps. And that was all because of the way we leaned into it during COVID. So we started thinking, okay, if we're seeing success with home now because we've focused more on core product and are doing more storytelling around it, what could that home business look like in the next 5 years if we really decided to push it because we're seeing traction? So if you go to the next slide, we basically created a growth plan for the home category over the next 5 years. So this doesn't have revenue in it either, but you can see the penetration. This will get us to be a $25 million home business in the next 5 years. And really, this came through, we started with a top line plan just like this. So thinking, what could this category be if our apparel business right now is roughly 25 million? Does it feel feasible that home could be 25 million in the next 5 years? Yes, it does, if we already have built one business that size. And so then how are we going to grow it as a penetration to the total, growing from 10% today to 25% of the business in 2024? All those things actually feel doable and potentially conservative. And so you can see I listed out a few of the initiatives that we started working on as part of our 5-year plan, which basically we're working on catalogs. We've never done long format catalogs before. We've been just doing postcard mailers because the ROI was really a big focus for us prior to this year. And I'll speak to that in a little bit. We talked about category expansions within home. So we're now building out a really robust furniture assortment, still trying to be strategic about the way that we run the home business. So big, heavy furniture like beds. We will be offering a bed and a couch coming soon, but the broader assortment is more in accent pieces where we think it's more manageable and probably more demand for our brand. But building out that category to be really clear in function and how we want customers to look at come to us for home. Build a bestsellers business. This isn't something that we'd really focused on with home as much as we had on the apparel side. So we know our top 10 styles in and out on the sweaters and shoe side of the business, and have plans for how we're going to hit sales targets in each of those styles each year. But we hadn't done that in home because it was a smaller part of the business historically. So we went after that. We launched interior design services, which is not something we've ever done before, but created a landing page on our website where customers can see some of the work that we've done. We've renovated a couple houses as brand projects in the past and decided to try and offer that to customers to help build awareness around us in the home category. Partnerships is something that we've been focusing on. We're a little bit in a holding pattern on those. We're doing something with Lulu in Georgia later this year. So started going after things that would give us more exposure in the home category. And then a TV show, which I can talk about in a minute. It's not confirmed yet, but it's something we've been working on and really decided to focus in on home. So these are some of the pieces that came together. Step 3, so this is really just the last and probably the most important step, is that we wanted to ensure the team, the only way we can do anything is if the team's all aligned and excited about working on it. And they were, as I said, heavily involved in road mapping these different parts of the business. But then we made the broader team aware of what we had found out from step 1 and step 2. And spent a lot of time working together to understand who would be responsible for what. So, the biggest change for us was that we really wanted the teams to have clear focuses. So within each team, we both wanted to achieve our immediate business goals, which is making sure we're hitting our revenue targets and our margin targets monthly and operating expenses. So certain team members are really accountable for managing our ad spend, things like that. And then the other piece of within the teams are focused on these longer term businesses. So we have someone now running the home category, which that wasn't her role previously, but we decided it needed an owner if it was really going to become a $25 million business for us. So we really set up these two different groups. The first piece being people who are dedicated to managing short-term business and kind of making sure that we're doing what we need to do on a monthly basis, and managing those dashboards that we created, things like that. And then step two here is to create smaller teams within each of our departments to make sure that they're working towards the long-term objectives that we set out to help grow the business in this new world. And really the teams all work together on ideas. I think that's something that we've been trying to be clear about as well. It's just all very collaborative. So we try to I have a growth group meeting that we do once every 2 weeks, which is where the heads of these different departments come together and just do a Zoom call about what they're working on. And then we give also on our weekly team update. Everyone gives kind of high level updates on what they're working on to ensure that we're both focusing on the short and the long term. And then the last slide, this is just something we put together around the past and the future. So this is just something for our digital marketing team as an example, but basically what did yesterday look like and what do we think tomorrow will look like? So of course team location was the office and now it's work from home with more flexible schedules. Some of these things are really obvious. Team meeting cadence. So it was a 30-minute weekly team meeting that turned into a 1-hour virtual. Key meetings shifted from being in person and casual conversations around the office to Zoom and Slack and things like that. But the probably more important pieces are that we really wanted to make sure we were clear on our focuses and that they made more sense for today versus tomorrow, or yesterday versus the future. So previously we were really focused on ROI and profitability on first purchase. We just really wanted to build a very ROI driven business on the marketing side this year. And we had some big learnings in Q1 around our customer lifetime value. So it made sense for us to be investing more aggressively in marketing, but we didn't want to do that because we were really focused on our P&L for this year. And then that short-term focus actually shifted this once COVID happened, because we saw this really low cost environment for acquiring new customers. And because we had done these exercises around customer lifetime value and we're seeing really healthy repeat rates with our existing customers, we felt confident that now is the time to actually go after it. So we've been investing, which a lot of people have been doing, investing aggressively in ad spend. And of course, that's Facebook and Instagram. But for us, it was also trying to be a little bit innovative around what people might be more excited about right now. So catalogs is something we decided to focus on because we know people are excited about getting their mail right now, probably more than they ever have been. Something to look forward to each day. TV commercials is something that we talked about doing, but it seemed too expensive. And now rates are 80% off what they were, but people are still watching TV. A lot more TV than usual. It's just that the big marketing, the big firms that agencies typically rely on for the big spend on ads are not dedicating money towards commercials right now. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So we just started looking at ways that we could kind of capitalize on this, knowing that our goal was to gain market share. And then there's some other things in here you can kind of just see. We really tried to make sure that we're doing some team building activities virtually. So some of these things are, previously we did the on-site lunches, so we would do lunch for everyone, things that most offices do. But I think for us, we shifted towards trying to make sure that things felt still like the business wasn't just about being on Zoom all day in meetings. So even with our Zoom, we started actually switching towards doing some workshops. So last week we had an outside firm come in called Mana, which does financial planning, and they basically did a couple hour training with our team on personal finances and how to manage your long-term planning. We rolled out 401k profit sharing, which isn't something that we had previously, but felt more important and when there's so much uncertainty, and that's something that we kind of jumped on. So trying to make the team feel inspired and positive about working at Jenni Kayne, even with this big change. Special at-home deliveries to the team. I think those are coming this week, so this might be unveiling a surprise, but basically just trying to make people feel positive and inspired to be part of the team, even when we don't get to see each other in the same way we did. So really just each department has kind of figured out what yesterday looked like and what tomorrow is going to look like, and all this is subject to change. But that's the idea: make sure everyone feels motivated around these new goals. So that's it. I'm happy to answer questions, but those are the slides I put together for today.
Awesome. Hey, oh, Julia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'm back on. I have so many questions for you. Plus, I wanted to say that your presentation, it left me feeling so hopeful, because I feel like we've all heard about the U curve or the V curve, and yours is like an up consistent growth curve. It's such the rare occurrence. Oh, I'm going to turn my video. That is me. There we go. Perfect. There we go. That's amazing. Can you tell me about your customer? Who is your customer? Because I know a lot of folks aren't shopping right now. Who is she?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of work on that, and the answer is different depending on what you're talking about. So for us, we really think our customer is anywhere from 25 to 30 up to 65. And it's a woman. So from the men who shop with us typically are gift shopping. There's probably some exceptions to that, but it's basically women. And I think within that, we don't really have a core demographic that we're going after. I think we see most of our customer lifetime value from women who are 40 to 60, just because that's when they're most affluent in their lives and spending on themselves. But it's pretty broad and everywhere. So we've been trying to make it more national as well. It's originally a very California focused brand, but we've been trying to introduce that aesthetic more nationally.
Yes. Has discounting come into play? A lot of brands are telling me that's the only way they can kind of clinch the sale.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing 20% off, max of 25% off. So those types of promotions we have been running. We know there's risk to doing it. I think we believe that if ever there was a time that a customer will probably forget about it, we hope that now is the time, because it's not necessarily associated with our brand as much as it is the landscape, but it's all a slippery slope. So yes, we've done anything more than that though.
Yeah, talk a little bit about customer acquisition. I did hear that kind of digital advertising, it was way down for a bit. Is it still down, and is it still more affordable than pre-COVID, I guess?
For us, it is, yeah. So our customer acquisition cost was about 200. So our AOV and our customer lifetime value numbers are pretty high. Our CLV is about $1,800, and our average transaction size is about $450. So for us, our CAC was around $200, and it's actually come down to $156 last month. So April was great. We'll see how May shakes out, but so far May looks like it's still doing really well, and it is pretty healthy traffic. We've seen high repeat rates. So for us, yes, but time will tell, I guess, what happens in the next month or two.
Yes, as you've kind of leaned into those tried and true categories, tried and true products, what's the game plan for, I guess, reintroducing some of those things that have maybe gone away, or is that even part of the plan? Or are you just going to build on those things that are working?
It's a good question. I think we're trying to do it all very slowly. So we've been fortunate to see so much success with the reduced assortment. So I think we have the liberty of being thoughtful around what we reintroduce. Some of it, our brand doesn't really try to be seasonal, so we carry a pretty consistent assortment across the year. Sweaters are always a big category for us, even in summer. So I think we're trying to reintroduce things. We had taken things off of the site, like sneakers, which were something we loved, but hadn't performed as well in the past as we thought as some of our other shoe categories. And now we decided to add those back because that feels like that's something that's really relevant. So it's kind of dipping our toe in, and as we see what works and what doesn't work, and then really just testing. But we are moving back towards most of the assortment being represented over the next 3 months. So
Awesome. I was going to ask about, never mind. I'm not going to touch on that. But let's touch about beauty. Wasn't sure if we should go there, but when was beauty set to launch? And if that's still in the cards?
yes, so we are launching a beauty brand later this year. It has actually, the date somehow miraculously hasn't really moved. I think initially we were hoping that it would be in spring of 2020, and now it looks like it's going to be fall 2020. But that's not really because of COVID. It's more because of planning and making sure that we have support to launch the category, unrelated to what's been happening. So we're launching a skincare line. It will be called Oak Beauty by Jenni Kayne. We're really excited about it. It's all skincare products that are made with clean ingredients and just meant to give you a natural kind of glowing look. And it's definitely aimed at a customer who is getting older. So it's not necessarily something that's going to be super flashy. It's all just natural and makes you feel good with the idea.
Yeah. You had that great chart representing the home category. Is beauty set to be a significant part of the business, or it will just kind of round out the lifestyle brand, or how would you describe it?
I like to under promise and over deliver. So it's something that we're not necessarily planning to be a huge part of the business. That said, 10, 15 million over the next 5 years feels achievable. And I have been told by people that even that's conservative, and it could be much bigger. So I think we're using this first year to really test and see what products resonate with our existing customer base before looking at partnerships like Sephora or something that could make it a much bigger deal. The AOV is significantly less than our sweaters and home products, so it is something where we potentially could acquire new customers in different segments if it does well. But for now, we just want to make sure we know what people want from us and that it all does what it's supposed to do, and then we'll try and scale.
Yeah, you've obviously, I guess, lost, I wouldn't say lost faith in physical retail, but in faith in, or you see a large physical footprint as being less necessary. Maybe, yes. Talk to me about maybe, I mean, maybe retail's direction. Like, who do you think that works for or is necessary for? Will anybody have a large physical footprint, I guess, moving forward?
No, I'm not sure. I think people will. For me, the biggest frustration has honestly been the relationships, navigating the relationship with the landlords. So I think I believe in retail and that people will continue, especially in our locations, which are more open air concepts. It's outdoor centers. We're not in malls, which I think is tricky. I still believe people will shop in malls again. I don't think it's all over and that it's easy to catastrophize in that way. But I do think that there's going to be some shifts away from it. And from my perspective, it's just been probably the most frustrating part of COVID has been each relationship with the landlord is different. They all have different needs and expectations. Nobody on the landlord side really wants to share in the responsibility. Of course, they will have no choice but to do that. So the conversations were really difficult and ongoing. And it didn't feel like a partnership at all, which is not something that I was a bit surprised that we, especially being in smaller centers, I thought it would be easier for our landlords to kind of understand and try and at least not be making, it would be one thing if they just kept base rent or something, to
Yeah.
not be making a margin on it, but it didn't seem like that was even, they weren't open to that until it took weeks of people not paying them anything, and then cash today became important. So that's my biggest frustration with retail is just, it's having too many people in your business that are not related to your business directly. So
Yes. Would you warn a newer brand against kind of signing that long-term lease?
yeah, I think so. I mean, if you can get really favorable terms, for us, we've been looking at percentage rent only deals so that, people only share an upside and we're not on the hook in a scenario like this.
Nice.
And having space build outs, like I think getting all of your tenant allowance covered as much as you can, those things are good, and it's a good time to be opportunistic because I think landlords are going to be in a position where they need to be more fair to tenants or friendly towards tenants. So I do think you can be opportunistic with it, but I do think don't get in love with anything right now because it's who knows what's going to happen in a year. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better on the retail side, I think.
Totally. I know you've been largely DTC. You did have that one retail partner, I think just one, but definitely Nordstrom. Still want to stick with them? Still, is a partner necessary?
No, I think when I joined the company, it was actually a predominantly wholesale business. 6 years ago, Jenni Kayne was, and we've shifted towards DTC. I'm super grateful for having made that decision. Today, we're not really, we do have some exposure because we work with Nordstrom, but we will no longer be working with Nordstrom in the foreseeable future. Pretty shocked again, kind of similar. Like, I know everybody's got to figure out their own businesses first and foremost, but definitely didn't feel like a conversation. And I think we're lucky that we were able to absorb the inventory onto our own channels, and will not be making the same choice again, probably about wholesale. So
That makes sense. I know you were. I don't know if you were close to clinching a fundraising deal, but you were definitely in talks. What have your has your approach changed? Your needs changed? What's going on there?
yeah, I think our company hasn't really been in a position where we needed funding. But from my perspective, I thought that bringing in an outside investor would kind of help take us to the next level. We have a pretty aggressive roadmap, and I think $100 million is, if anything, I'm hopeful that it's conservative. So I thought that having some outside capital come into the business and having some investors who are professional and have skin in the game would help us make hold ourselves accountable to that growth plan. And we were close with, we were looking only at partners who I thought could add a lot of strategic value. So not just money, but really were coming to the table with some other skill set. And we were close, but I think on our end, in addition to people getting scared, investors are obviously looking at cheaper deals now and trying to do things that are opportunistic for them, as they should be. I think we decided to put the whole thing on pause because we actually do really think our company will be worth more money in a year, and 2 years and 3 years, and that we're only seeing upside right now. So it doesn't make sense to be giving up equity, especially when we don't need the cash. So it did change our planning for sure.
Well, let's touch a little bit on your latest marketing tactics before we turn it over to a few audience questions. Talk to me about the catalog that you have recently launched, maybe the creation of that, completion of that. How did that happen?
Well, it's something we've been talking about doing for a while, and our direct mail campaigns have really just been these printed mailers that offer, a little bit of an incentive to come back to the site, like a 10 or 15% discount that we send out to a retention audience, and they're really successful. They drive a ton of return for us. But investing in a catalog was something that I was nervous about because previously we used to print lookbooks and they cost a small fortune, $15 for a book that. And I didn't really realize that the prices could be so much more manageable than that. So now we pay less than $1 for a catalog. But basically, we just decided that it would be a good opportunity to send something to people who are looking for inspiration at home. And our first is going out right now, just in orders. It's a magazine, which we've never had before. And then we have real catalogs launching in June and August. And it's just a testament to how amazing our team is. I mean, we literally started talking about this on April 15th, and the first catalog is shipping on May 20th, I guess like next week, end of May. So in the next several days. Oh God, the date's so hard to keep track of time. But in any event, so I think we just really decided that we knew we had a lot of great assets. The company's very good at content, and so we just put together some really beautiful 40-page books. I can't believe they did it so quickly and with nice storytelling, and everybody just rallied around that idea. And we're expecting to see a big lift from catalogs. We've heard really good things and found a good partner to help us manage the data and analytics around it. So that's coming soon.
Awesome. Well, then I'm going to jump to one question from the audience because that kind of ties to what you just said about the partner. Somebody was asking let me see if I got it right, but it was, what tasks are best outsourced versus kept in-house?
That's a good question. So I think our philosophy has been to try and make as much as possible everything in-house. We'd always rather own data, own our systems. I think we've gotten to a bit of a jam over the last couple of years trying to add kind of point solutions onto our software setup, which then means that we have agencies managing our rewards program and our ad strategy on Instagram and Facebook versus different strategy on Pinterest and Google. And so we've really been trying to bring everything in-house. I think we're really glad that we did that. It's still a work in progress because those businesses all have more expertise than anyone on our team does about everything. But I'd say for us, bringing as much in-house as we possibly can, it usually ends up paying for itself if you do a good job with it. So I don't like outsourcing too much. That said, there are certain functions like for the catalog, for example, direct mail, that we're never going to print in-house 100,000 catalogs, or find addresses for 100,000 people who are in acquisition. Like those things have to be outsourced. And so we just try to find the partner that feels the most like an in-house resource. We call our digital marketing agency like an out-of-house CMO. She helps us really advise on strategy. So anyone who's a consultant, they just need to feel bought into the brand in a bigger way. And we never want to feel like we're kind of just an item on their invoicing each month. So
yeah. That makes sense. Somebody was asking about like how your staff feels going back to the stores. What's your kind of approach, I guess, to reopening? Is it slow and steady? Any rush to go there?
We are reopening. We started right when the mayor in so most of our stores are in California. The other places are more like New York, which is a little bit behind, I think, on reopening. So we are reopening. We went straight to curbside pickup. It's a challenge because it's really a personal experience. I think some people are really excited to get back to work, and some people are kind of terrified. And those conversations are a little bit difficult to navigate because it's all very sensitive, and nobody
Yeah.
has ever gone through anything like this before. But we did bring the managers back first, and so they're back full time, and they're working to help people virtually. California or Los Angeles as of today is allowed to do regular up to 50% capacity for just shopping now. So that's a big change that we just found out about yesterday. So it's
Yeah.
kind of evolving as we go. But we definitely are trying to be sensitive to the store associates' feelings about it. We've had managers be uncomfortable with people coming in the store without masks. And so trying to create policies that are friendly to our customers and inviting, but also make people feel healthy or safe. It's not easy. And I think that's part of the reason that I'm a little bit more nervous about retail long term, is that I just think it's such the anxiety and fear around what's been happening are probably going to affect some people very differently. Some will be ready to go back to the real world as soon as possible, and others are not. And that's not really in our control. There's not too much we can do about it. So that's part of my longer term fear about the industry, and the reason that I think betting on e-commerce is the smart move. No, in the short and long term.
Safer bet for the shopper, that's for sure. And finally, from the audience, we had the audience give us some questions ahead of time. Any tips for juggling multiple roles, such as social media content creation, PR, and marketing? Are a lot of your staff, I don't know, doing triple jobs right now?
Yes, they are. We did a small reduction right when COVID happened on the corporate side. And that did mean that a few people's jobs turned into like 7 people's job, or turned into them managing 7 people's functions. That's I'm sure that the people are still wondering when we're going to be able to go back to having a little bit more divided responsibilities. We kind of took the mentality that it's like, okay, everybody's going back to basics. So you weren't thinking about these things a year ago or 6 months ago because we'd hired support, but now everybody kind of has, I was shipping boxes, and most of our team was like in the warehouse and trying to help get things organized. And I'm terrible at that. So the, NPS score quickly plummeted for our e-commerce deliveries when our corporate team was shipping boxes. But I think everybody just kind of had to go back, and as long as it felt like it, it was hard to make everyone feel like they were sharing equally in this kind of shift and burden. But that's something that had to happen, and I think we just appreciated the people who really stepped up to the plate and still do. And hope that it's both a positive experience to kind of go back and focus on the things that are really fundamental to everybody's roles, and then also hope that eventually we can hire back team to alleviate some of that. So
Awesome. We'll end it on a fun note. What more can you tell us about the TV show?
So the TV show will be, we purchased a home in Santa Ynez pre-COVID. Santa Ynez is like Santa Barbara wine country. There's this house was in bankruptcy, and it's a total tear down on 20 acres of land, really beautiful rolling hills, but the house needs to be fully renovated. So we bought that house as an investment property for the company to really push forward the home strategy, and give us more opportunities for content and showing our product in a real home, a Jenni Kayne home. And the TV show will be the process of renovating, start to finish, that property in Santa Ynez. And we're hoping that will be out in Q1 or Q2 of 2021. So it is, we made the sizzle. It's taken a couple of years to get to this place, but we're pretty close to knowing who Condé Nast is the producer for it, but we don't know which network it will be on yet. So keep you posted.
Oh my gosh, it will be like Goop Lab for homes.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, this was so awesome. We kept you longer than we intended to, but this was just, anyway, so helpful. Thank you for being so open and honest with the numbers, which is a rarity. We like that. So thank you, Julia. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.